Lead Up listeners, Mike Harbour. I'm really excited today on this episode of the Lead Up podcast. This is episode 466. We're coming up on the end of 2025. We always start thinking about next year. Really, we think about the last year, like I had all these goals and I didn't get there. So this is going to be a great episode for you to tune into and learn more about how to make next year your best year ever, to quit drifting through life and make next year a year where you really achieve the goals that you set in front of you. So on episode 466, I've got my friend Chris Robinson. Chris is the Executive Vice President of Maxwell Leadership. He's also recently authored a book, Drift to Drive. I know it's a motivational book. It's about getting up and getting things going. I really think it's because Chris has 3 16-year-olds. He's got triplets. All 3 of them are driving. He's hoping they're driving and not drifting out there on the streets of the world. But Chris, he leads the global expansion of Maxwell Leadership Certified Team. It's a community of leaders. This is where Chris and I met way back in 2011. We didn't know what we were doing. We were eyes wide open, deer in headlights. One of the first 300 members of the John Maxwell team, Chris and I were. And now that team is, I don't know, 50 or 60,000. I'll let Chris tell you more about that in a minute. But what the Maxwell team does is helps people like you, leaders, grow. Leaders become coaches, speakers, trainers, if that's what you want to do. And Chris is responsible for all of that. That's not really what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about how you can take your life, your leadership, your goals to the next level, quit setting them and go achieve them. Chris, man, it's great to catch up with you. It's been a few years since we talked. Welcome to the Lead Up podcast.
Hey, Mike, thanks so much for having me, man. I am so excited to be on with you. And I'm excited, to be on this journey with you, 15, almost 16 years later, being able to stay in the game, and as you talked about when we first met, eyes wide open, not knowing what we're doing, no words could better describe it. But man, I tell you what, to see you in this game and see us together 15, 16 years later, man, it's just absolutely amazing to see the impact that you've made, the difference that you're making in leaders' lives all around the world. And man, I'm just grateful to be here with you today.
Yeah, well, it's an honor to have, man. It kind of come full circle, right? When we started, I mean, Chris and I, we started with a kind of a dream. We wanted to be coaches and speakers and trainers. We had no clue really how to do that. He had a love for John Maxwell. I had a love for John Maxwell. We both read his books. I remember a story, Chris, I'll let him dive into it in a minute, where he used to go into this conference room and push play on the VCR and let John Maxwell teach, and he'd facilitate that. And Chris and I did a lot together to help grow the Maxwell team, and we're some of the faculty members in the early stages of that, growing that team to what it is today. We've since kind of gone different ways. Chris leads that team now, which is really impressive. Chris, from where you came from, and I'm gonna let you share a little bit about your story. And now, in my business of just doing corporate leadership training and development for companies across the U.S. mainly, it's exciting to kind of come full circle and see where we've been. But let's talk a little bit about how you got here. I want to do a little setup first. How you got here. Little guy from little old St. Louis, right? Not really, you got a past, but you wanted to do something bigger. You had a dream. Let's just take us on that journey a little bit.
Yeah, like I said, it came in with a dream, a hope, an aspiration of just really wanting to add value to people. But it really boiled down to, it was many years ago, even prior to joining Maxwell team, was that I was at this conference, and at this conference there was speakers there all weekend long that were just incredible. We were inside the Georgia Dome, and thousands of people inside this arena being impacted by speakers. And I went into one of their vendor hall, and there was all these different booths that were set up, and then they had the speaker showcase that was happening, which I wasn't familiar with what that was. And if you're not familiar, a speaker showcase is kind of like a fashion show for speakers. They got 3 to 5 minutes. They come on the stage, they get off the stage. And I sat there for 90 minutes solid, just enamored with these people. They were well dressed, they were well spoken, they had books, they had CDs. And, at the end of it, Mike, they said these magic words that shifted my imagination forever. They said, "These people get paid to speak." Now, I had never heard those words in my life. And I thought, oh my goodness, how incredible would that be? And at the time, I was a sales manager inside of an organization. And, I thought this idea of getting paid to speak, and I began to pay attention more to videos that were online, to every speaker that I would see and encounter. And this fire inside of me just says, hey, I want to impact people by standing on stages. I want to impact people by developing people. So it was one of those slivers of life where I did what, and I had a desire for what our friend Sherry Riley says. Had asked this question: what if you could spend 100% of your time doing the 10% that you love?
Mhm.
And that 10% that I loved as a sales manager was developing people. And
Mhm.
so I got really passionate about developing people. My mission shifted from trying to be the top sales manager to trying to be the manager that could develop the most leaders. And so every single sales meeting became this motivational session. Every single coaching session became this: how can I develop this person to help them get promoted on their job? And that passion really overtook me, which led me into trying to figure out, how do I go out and do this thing full time for a living? And, I tried many different things to get stepped out there. But when I came in contact with the Maxwell team, that's where I found the tools, the resources, the support, but more importantly, friendships like yours, Mike, that truly helped me stay in the game and advance the game. And I think a lot of people, they say, hey, I want to do something, but yet they don't have the clarity of what they want to do. They don't have the information. More importantly, they don't have the relationships that go beyond just an event. Going to events are great, but it's hey, the event's over. It's Tuesday. You don't know what you're doing. Hey, I had to pick up the phone and call Mike and say, Mike, what am I doing with my life?
Mhm.
What am I doing with my life? And so, I stuck around and I just continued to stay consistent. Was never the best communicator, never the best coach, never the best at anything, but consistency allowed for me to stay in the game. And because of that, it's allowed for me to roam the world, adding value to people. So, today, I serve as the vice president of a certified team. I get a chance to travel around the world, speaking to thousands upon thousands of people. We have over 60,000 members worldwide from just the 300 that we started with. And it truly has been a dream come true, and a dream each and every single day, just to be able to go out and add value to people.
Yeah. It's interesting, so much in that. I just want to hit on, make sure our listeners hear. One of the things Chris said is he started where he was, right? Right with his own team. If you want to become a better communicator, a better leader, start right where you're at, right with your own team. But he also stepped out and went to some places to get some exposure to people that were ahead of him. And we have to do that, right? And then the third thing Chris shared, and I think this is the most important, is get in a circle of people that are going where you want to go, right? Or maybe that are ahead of you. And I think back, Chris, you and I've still got great relationships with many people that I met, at that first. I don't know any of the 60,000, but I know a handful. I stay in touch with a lot of people. Matter of fact, I'm bringing Barry Smith in to do some
Yeah.
training for a company that I'm working with in December, right? He's somebody I stay in contact with. That was in an early circle. But Chris and I actually started a kind of a mastermind group together. Chris, you
Yeah.
remember that? We
Yeah.
were
Oh,
teaching each
yeah.
other how to do lunch and learn for free to go
Right.
from free to fee. But talk about the importance of that inner circle, no matter where you're at. Like if you want to get better, you got to have a circle that
Yeah.
challenges you out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, that is one of the most critical components. Inside the book Drift to Drive, I give a 7-step framework in order to break the chains of complacency and to move in the direction that you want to go. And one of those steps is relationships. It's actually the fifth step is relationships and having and being inside the right rooms. Now, here's the mistake that people make, Mike, and this is the mistake that I made as well too early on, was that we hear this advice of, you need to get around a good circle of people. You need to have, like-minded people around you. And I recall very specifically, being inside of a local networking group with a group of successful people. It was your typical financial planner, insurance agent, mortgage broker, real estate person. We had a great group of successful people that were in the room. And every single week, we would go up to the whiteboard, we would share our plans, and everybody would give feedback on, on try to help that individual's business. And I remember when it was my turn to go to the board, Mike. I mean, I was so excited. You know how passionate I was about, doing this thing. And I go out to the whiteboard. I write out what I'm going to use as a lead gen page. I write out what my funnel is going to look like. I write out my offer. I write out all these different things, and I put the marker down. I'm waiting on the feedback, and it was silent.
Mm.
I mean, absolutely silent. Not a word to be said back. And I remember being upset, going, man, I add value to everybody every single week. I prepared for this. Nobody had anything to say. And a good friend of mine put his arm around my shoulder. He says, Chris, what you set up there was great. He says, but there's not a person in the room that understands what you're trying to do as a speaker, coach, and trainer. He says, Chris, I think you're in the wrong room. And he was absolutely right. I did the appropriate thing. I checked the box of getting inside the room with successful people. But the nuance that I missed was that I did not have people that were moving in the exact same direction or passion that I had. So that's when I got around people like yourself, where we had a group of 4, 5, 6, 7 people all trying to figure out the same problem. We were all trying to figure out how to coach, how to speak, how to train, how to go from free to fee, how to take a 30-minute presentation inside of an organization and then convert that into a lead, to convert that to a sale. Like, you all understood it, and it lit my life on fire. And so as people are listening, I don't want them to make that mistake or that nuance and miss the nuance of, yes, you want to get around successful people, but it's moving in the direction that you want to. So if that is, hey, you want to get better in your physical fitness, get around some people that are successful in their physical fitness. If you want to get around some people that are trying to get great at golf, get around some better golf players. If you want to get around some people that are getting good at pickleball, get around people that have that specific passion, not just random successful people. And man, I cannot tell you how valuable those times that you and I had together in those groups were. With every fiber in my body, Mike, I'm telling you, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today if it were not for you and the groups that we were part of. I would not be helping the people that I'm helping today without having the input and the insight, from you and those others. Man, it's just truly grateful to have people like yourself in my life, but like-minded people moving in the same direction means everything.
Yeah, as the old biblical proverb says, iron sharpens iron, right? And that's
Indeed.
what we were doing, man. And I love that you said that. Get in the right room, not just. I've never been a fan of like these network marketing groups, right? Where you go and I don't even know what they're called, and don't want to call them out. But I've just never been a fan of those. I want to be in a room of people that are either, if I'm prospecting, the right prospects, or I want to be in a room of people like me trying to go where I'm trying to go. And before I joined the Maxwell team, Chris, I kind of had this dream. I got out of the Army in 1998. And while I was in the Army, I was a trainer. I stood up in front of people and spoke. Now in the Army, I didn't get paid. I got paid because I got paid based on my rank, but I had a captive audience. They didn't have to pay to come see me, right? They had to listen to it. But I had this dream when I got out of the Army in 1998 to do what I'm doing today. Yet it was 2010, so 11 years later before I decided to do it because I was too afraid. Number one, I'm like, man, I'm terrible at speaking. And so I joined the Toastmasters Club. This was before. Well, I joined the Toastmasters so I could get a little bit better. Now, here's the truth, Chris. I had joined Toastmasters 2 other times before and quit because when it came my turn to speak, I was like, I'm too scared. I don't want to get up and do it, right? So it took me 3 times to stick, and when I finally get a goal, like I'm on it like a bulldog, right? And I actually joined 2 Toastmasters clubs at the same time. I was going on Tuesdays and Fridays, so I could speak as much as possible, right? And then I get this email from John Maxwell at that time about it was Paul Martinelli, right? The John Maxwell team, the marketing, and man, I signed up the next day. And, the rest is history, right? It kind of set me on that path forward to where I'm at today. I've met great people that sharpened me and challenged me and pushed me. to become better and better. And I've got great relationships from that. And I hope our listeners understand that no matter where you want to, I mean, Chris said this, better parent, better spouse, better financial steward, better,
Yeah.
better husband, wife, whatever it is. Get in a room of people like that, right? That are trying to get better. I grew up in a lot of dysfunction, Chris. I wouldn't be the father I am today had I not got involved in men's ministry stuff in 1999 when I got out of the Army, right? That kind of helped me. That was kind of my first step into leadership, self-leadership. And then joining the Maxwell team was another push forward. Let's talk about this though. In your book, you talk about clarity over busyness.
Yeah.
And how leadership isn't about doing more, it's about doing more of what matters with intention. And that's kind of what we're talking about here, getting intentional. You can go to these groups and be busy, but what's the intention behind it? Speak into that a little bit.
Yeah. Well, you have to have clarity. Okay. So in a couple different statements there. Number one, you cannot be what you cannot see, and you cannot have what you cannot see. And so anytime that we feel like an overwhelm, or we feel like an uneasiness, or we feel like we're stuck, it's typically because we don't have a lack of clarity. We don't know what it is that we're striving for. And so inside the book, I talk about two different types of complacency that kind of settle in and kind of fog up our clarity. The first one is what we call complacency myopia. Now, myopia is a optometry term for nearsightedness. And this person looks like this. They are busy all day long. Like, they are rearranging their desk, they're rearranging their books, they're putting them in alphabetical order, they're researching new equipment online. Then now, after they research that equipment, now they go off to do the next thing. They're busy all day long, but they don't have any direction of where they're going. And so they just find themselves going in circles. Now, on the flip side of that, you have the person that has what we call complacency hyperopia. Now, this person, they can see the vision. Oh, Chris, I'm crystal clear on what it is that I want. And they can see the vision, they can articulate the vision. But the problem that happens there is that they don't see the first step in front of them. And so they never get moving because they don't take that first step. And what happens is they get this result in both cases, you stand still. And so, if you're trying to do anything, the very first step of anything is getting crystal clear on what it is that you want, because lack of specificity leads to confusion, and confusion leads to complacency. And I love the way that John Maxwell places it in the 15 laws of growth. Because a lot of times we attach our happiness to our clarity or what it is that we're achieving. But he says that unhappiness is not knowing what you want and killing yourself to get it.
Mhm.
Unhappiness is not knowing what you want and killing yourself to get it.
That's
And
good.
so if there's anything that we have to do on the front side, Mike, is we have to be clear on what it is that we want.
That's so good. So let's go one step further, because you talked about two
Yeah.
types of complacency. There's a third that you write about in the book, success-induced complacency. I think
Yeah.
I've suffered from this one, but I want to know how you define it before I diagnose myself.
The Japanese defined it for us first. They use a term called sensu, which is victory disease. Victory disease is what that stands for. And that's when a series of successes leads to complacence and arrogance. And if you go back to the original meaning of the word complacency, Mike, the origin meaning of the word complacency means careless security. Careless security. So things that we feel like, oh, I've got that down. That's secure. I don't have to worry about that. And we find ourselves letting our foot off the gas and not really paying attention to it the way that we did in the very beginning. And so when I wrote about this book, I know the term complacency doesn't immediately resonate with the high achiever like yourself, and this is who this book is written for. But complacency, in its essence, we often tie it to laziness or apathy. But what it's really tied to, and the way that I redefine it in the book, is I call complacency a secret place of satisfactory success.
Yeah.
Secret place. After you get that deal, and then now all of a sudden, hey, I don't have to prospect as hard anymore. And not that you don't know that you have to prospect hard anymore, but there's this ease that comes. Well, my bills are taken care of. This is all right. I've got to go deliver on this thing. And so I let this thing go to the side. And I don't know about you, Mike, but I found myself in that cycle time and time again. I've got the deal. whew, I don't go out here and hustle as hard as I did to get that deal. And all of a sudden, that deal goes away, and I find myself in a trap again. And so it
Ooh,
truly is.
you speaking my language, brother. I've lived that when I started this business, right? You work your rear off to go land a deal. You land a deal. All right, I can pay some bills. The old destination disease, right? You set a
Right.
goal and you achieve the goal. Ooh, I can rest now. I achieve a weight. I was just thinking as you're talking about that, Chris, 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago now, May of 23, Clayton and I did a 2 week hiking trip. And so
Wow.
we hiked out west, and the finale was we carried 40 pounds apiece on our back, hiked to the bottom of the Grand Canyon, camped 2 nights, hiked back out. Now I spent 6 months getting ready for that.
Right.
Got in great shape. Guess what? I'm not in great shape anymore, right? I got oh, I've kind of let my foot off the gas. I got to get back to work, man. Same thing with business as you spoke, man. Land a deal, and then it's feast or famine, right? So I always operate 2 years in advance. Like right now, I've got enough business right now that I don't need any business next year to pay my bills. But I'm like, okay, what's 2027 look
Yes,
like, right? I'm
right.
looking at 2027's book of business right now,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And I had to make that shift, man, because I would do what you're talking about. Oh, I don't need to work anymore. I got enough for next year. And then you get to the end of the year and you're like, oh my gosh, I better go get some business. And then
Right.
90, look, in my world, it takes 90 days to 6 months to land a deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, the sales cycle on a six-figure deal is long.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I love that. I so relate to that because I've been there, right? I can do that in my speaking, like
Right.
get really good, but quit practicing, quit learning.
Yeah.
That's what I love about John Maxwell. One of the things I learned from him. I don't know if I think you remember, Chris, when we first joined. I'm fixing to set up 60,000 people, but we got to go to John's house. You remember?
Oh, yeah.
We got to see his catalog of like how he
Yeah.
prepares for speaking and writing books and all that. I'm like, man, I thought I was disciplined,
Right.
but that dude's always trying to get better, right? And
Yeah.
I think you and me and a lot of people are always trying to get better, but they
Yeah.
don't have a clear path to get
Right.
better. So talk about that a little bit. Kind of maybe
Yeah.
that's not on in your book, but
Yeah.
I think it's important to talk about you because we all want to get better.
Yeah.
How do we create that path to really getting better?
Yeah, well, really, that was the impetus of this book, Mike, was that I wanted to show people the path, and I have a 7-step framework inside the book that walks them through that, which is simple of clarity, gathering content information, filtering that content and information to make sure that it stacks up, getting guidance, which is coaching and mentoring, having the right relationships, taking action, and then evaluating that action. Those are the 7 steps. But what really prompted this, Mike, it goes back to, being with John Maxwell and him being a constant learner. And I had found a place of complacency in my life 18 months ago when I was with him in the country of Cambodia. We went to Cambodia, and it was just really, it was, a speaker's dream. There's only 2 people on the agenda that day, Mike. It was John Maxwell and me for 2,500 people inside this room in Cambodia. So we're on the other side of the planet. I'm going to go speak with John Maxwell, only 2 people on the agenda. Prior to that, Mike, I go into the president of Cambodia's office with John Maxwell. I mean, man, you're talking about a speaker's just checklist, just boom. Oh man, I'm living at the top tier here. And, now I'm coming out of the president's office. John's got his arm around me. I'm feeling great. We get ready to go speak. And I go out in front of 2,500 plus people inside the room. Now, a couple different things went wrong inside this presentation, Mike. The first thing that went wrong was that I was speaking with an interpreter, and how stop and go translation goes. There's a couple sentences for me, a couple sentences from him, a couple sentences from me, and there's just this weird, odd cadence sometimes. And this was the first time that I had actually heard this language, the language of Khmer. And so it was lots of popping and bopping sounds that I had never heard before. And then I'm starting to giggle on stage, and it's okay. I'm gonna get this rhythm down. My remote for my presentation's not working.
Oh no.
Finally, it comes up, and then it's like another thing that I didn't check out. usually when I speak in another country, there's English language on one side, the country's language on this side. But this country, their language had to go on top of any other language. And so when my slides came out, Mike, it looked like somebody took a game of Scrabble, threw the letters up in the air, and they landed on my slide desk. I mean, that's the way it looked. It just bad. It's okay. I'm a professional. I'm getting through this thing. I deliver the presentation, and then at the end, there's a line of people. They're telling me how great it was, how it impacted it, how awesome it was. But then at dinner time, I'm feeling kind of good, and I've got my notepad and my pen out with John Maxwell, and I say, John, I know it's been a couple months since you've seen me speak. Could you give me some feedback on my presentation today? I'm looking for a tip or two. And he obliges, and he gives me not one, but 10 different things I did wrong in this presentation. And then to top it off, my table thought it was a brainstorming session, so they all start chipping in on everything I did wrong. Yep. And I've got this pile, I've got this whole sheet of stuff I did wrong.
Yeah.
And that night, when I went to go reflect, Mike, that night, I looked at that list, and there was a thing on there that I did not know. But what happened was I had spoken so many times leading up to this point that I had taken for granted. I had fallen to a secret place of satisfactory success. And I know that I had spent more time to go speak at a Rotary Club a decade ago than I did to go speak for 2,500 people with John Maxwell on stage. And what that did was that thrusted me into this, holy smokes, I've got to wake up. I've got to jump out of this. What do I need to do to get back in motion? And that's when I began to really dive into those 7 steps that I share inside the book to get me back up. So now I'm sharper, I'm aware, I'm moving through this cycle. I went back to books that I read in the very beginning on communication. I went back to videos, audios, that I had once watched before to see, let me patch back up my foundation. I began to hire, a new speaking coach, working with comedian Michael Jr. on, working with my content as well too. I got around other people again going, hey, let's work out again. I'm out of shape. But then I continue to take action on what I'm learning. And then we evaluate every single presentation, just like I'll do with this podcast right afterwards. We'll take this, we'll run it through AI. I'll have somebody watch it. We'll get feedback. But that's the 7 steps that we take, Mike, in order to get better. It's a process if we want to get better.
Yeah, that's so good. Humble pie, right? Humble
Yeah,
pie.
buddy.
You get that feedback. It's a wake-up call for me too, as you speak about that. I've just been, as I get into the end of the year, start reflecting on, what's going well, but where do I need to get better next year? I've gotten real complacent in my study, like studying and learning new things so that I have new content to make impact, right? I've got a library full of books, Chris, as I'm sure you do. And
Yeah.
when I look at them, maybe I've only read 50% of that library. I've spent a lot of money, but I hadn't got a lot of knowledge out of that.
Right.
So let's talk about that for just a minute. Because
Yeah.
what I know, and because you mentioned this, check, you had these goals and like, man, if I could do that, man, I'm checking my goals off, right? There's a lot of goal setting that's about to happen over the next few weeks. As you and I record this, we're at the end of 2025. People start thinking about what they want to be better in their life next year. So there's a lot of goal setting that's about to happen over the next few weeks. Talk about habits, how habits shape our future, not goals.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what you're talking about there is going from being goal oriented to growth oriented. And what I want to encourage people to do, and I know this is cliche, but it's falling in love with the process of becoming whatever that goal is. It's the process. It's the what you do daily. It's the process of the 6 months that you took to prepare to take that 2-week hike. That was where the growth was really coming, was in that process, not the goal itself. The goal comes when you just focus on the process. And so I think one of the big mistakes that people make in setting goals is one, setting too many. Now, I was a victim of this, and I used to teach this like it was the gospel. I would teach, You need to set 5 goals in 5 areas of your life. And, Mike, I found out that was crazy.
Yeah.
And I found out that was crazy because when I was looking at these goals in 5 areas of my life, times 5 goals, there's 25 goals that I'm trying to reach. And inevitably, at the end of the year, at the end of the quarter, wherever, I was only really achieving 1 or 2 of those things because I had forgotten about or got off track. And so I think narrowing it down to simply asking yourself one question. All right. Before you go out and set these goals, ask yourself one question. It goes back to the clarity step, which is, what do you want? What do you want? On a blank sheet of paper at the top, just one line. What do I want? Because once you begin to really get clear on that, the steps that it takes in order to get there become a whole lot more clear, and it makes you easier to charge towards that goal. This past year, I only set one goal, Mike. I only had one goal for 2025. Okay. And that one goal was become New York Times bestseller list. All right. Now, I end up missing the goal. I end up hitting number 12 on USA Today, which was great. National bestseller. It's awesome. But I missed the big goal. But every single thing that I did, that directed my day. I knew every single day that I woke up, hey, I need to write for the book. Every single day I need up, I need to do something for the website of the book. Every single day I need to sell a book today. And that drove me to wake up out of bed going, I've got to get one thing done today. And that's the other mistake that people make, Mike, is that they think that when they set these new goals, they got to spend the whole day working on the goal. When you don't have to spend the whole day working on the goal, you just need to spend every day working on the goal. Every day. Every day that ends in day. So don't overset goals in terms of numbers. Get clear on what it is that you want. And then do something every day that ends in day to work towards it.
Yeah, that's good. I'm a big college sports fan. Unfortunately, I'm a Razorback,
Yeah.
they're terrible in football, but Texas A&M, I don't know, if you're familiar with Chris, but they were down like 31-3 or something this past weekend at halftime. So they were down like 27 points at halftime, and they ended up winning the game. It's 30-3 at halftime, and they ended up winning the game 31-30. So, but Mike Elko, the coach, he said, they in one of his press conferences afterwards, they were asking him what he said at halftime. He said, I didn't say anything at halftime. He said, we didn't win that game because I said something spectacular at halftime. We won that game 6 months ago when we started putting in the effort, started working hard, started becoming winners, right? Started all those things we needed to become to achieve that win, to when our back's against the wall. And I think that's so important for people to hear, right? And that's kind of what you're speaking here. You don't, John Wooden used to say, you don't wait for the moment to arrive to get ready. You get ready. You get ready. So when it comes, you're fully prepared. And so, that's a lot of what you're talking about here. What do you want? I'll just take it one step further because I'm a believer that you can want something. What habits do you have to change to get it?
Right. Yeah.
Because look, we all have, like, I want to have that body I had when I was 25 years old in the Army, Chris. One, I'm not going to run 10 miles a day like I had to back then, and
Right.
like to eat ice cream. And
It's a secret place of satisfactory success.
there's certain habits I'm not going to change, right? But again, for our listeners, what do you want? But what habits do you need to let go of?
Yeah.
Or what habits do you need to create in your life to really have those things that you want? And Chris's life is a byproduct of him doing that and being willing to do that. He's living his dream of standing beside John Maxwell in a foreign country and speaking to that. It's incredible, Chris. I love your growth, man, and what you're doing today. Let's wrap up here. I want to give you 2 questions to kind of wrap up.
Yeah.
Mistakes don't define us. We've all had mistakes in life. Give someone advice on mistakes. Maybe you talked about mistakes in speaking, maybe other mistakes you've made in your life and how you've used those to propel you, not define you. And then maybe that final piece of advice you give somebody to make next year a year where they drive forward, not drift through.
Yeah, when it comes to mistakes, I mean, that's gonna happen. You're gonna get things wrong, and I think that most people believe that, success is on the left and failure is on the right, and we think that we have to do everything we can to just pull to the right, and failure, we don't want anything to do with. If you could bring those 2 together and understand that, success and failure go together, mistakes and success go together, like, they are one. What that'll do is it'll do 2 different things. If you understand that failure is in front of you, success is behind it, and they are together, you see, when you have success, you'll realize that your failures will help keep you humble. When you have failure, you'll have success keep you in balance to, give you the confidence that you need to keep moving forward. So we have to bring those 2 together. And so if you really, really want to continue to grow and continue to move forward, understand that your mistakes are just that. They're not lifetime sentences. They're there for a moment, but they can be changed over time. And so there's no failure that you can't come back from. There's no score that you can't be down too far and come back and win. And hey, even if the game is over, hey, there's a new game that you can go and play and you can start again. What I truly believe for all of our listeners is that their best days are ahead.
Yeah, that's good. Look, one of the things that was a difference maker for me is begin to become a student of history, right? Biographies, learning from
Yeah.
failures. Abraham Lincoln is one of the biggest failures we've ever had in the history of becoming president, right? If you really know his history, you can look at, I think of Elon Musk and the things he's doing today that are incredible. But how many rockets they had to blow up before they learned how to land, re-land a rocket, right? I mean, and there's stories from history in that. They're lessons, though. They're not failures, right? They're lessons if you look at them in the right frame. So, Chris, certainly you've used those lessons to propel you forward to get you where you are today. I appreciate that. Talk a little bit about the Maxwell team, and if there's
Yeah.
somebody on here that, is interested in learning more about getting to where Chris is and then
Right.
becoming a part of a community of 60,000 plus now that are people that are going to cheer you forward.
Yeah, well, the Maxwell Certified Team is really for an individual that wants to improve in a couple different areas of skill development. And I believe that if you develop these 3 skills, it'll help you get promoted on your job, it will help you grow your business, or it can help you actually get paid to actually coach, speak, and train. But those 3 skills are communication skills. Inside the Maxwell Certified Team, we teach you how to become a better communicator, more effective communicator. And the number one skill that you can have that will help you get promoted is increasing your communication skills. Coaching skills. If you want to develop people and you want to get more productivity, more profits out of people on your team, and learning how to become a great coach will help you do that. And of course, training. Everything rises and falls on leadership. It's not about you being the best producer, but how many producers that you can create. And if you can become a great trainer, that's going to help you develop others so that you can multiply your time and efforts. And so our team helps you develop those skills, and it brings a community together that helps, again, like-minded people, getting together and moving in the same direction of just adding value to people. So it's a great program. It's been a true value and benefit to me. And, they like to call me a product of the product, you know. And so, truly, truly, just been an incredible community to be a part of.
Yeah, it really has, and you are a product of the product. I feel like I am as well. I've got some great relationships. I still connect with a lot of people from my days of, the early days of the Maxwell team. And, it really is kind of a melting pot, right? I mean,
Yeah,
the Maxwell team is made up of people from all walks of life, all
yeah,
national. I don't know if it's every nation, but it's close, if
yeah.
it's not every nation.
168.
168 different nations around the world, are represented in the Maxwell team, and you learn from everybody. It helps you become a better person too, right? Because you see
Yeah,
things from it. That's one of the things the military did for me, Chris, is, I got out of my little small town and I was exposed to lots of different people.
yeah,
You learn adaptability, flexibility, and appreciability, right? Appreciating people a little bit more when you get around different people. So you mentioned this. I'll just, kind of define it. The true measure of leadership is, can you develop a leader who can develop another leader, right? I mean, that's the essence. Chris is doing that, 50,000 plus people now under his belt. that he's doing that, under the umbrella of John Maxwell. Chris, congratulations on your book, man.
Thank you.
Congratulations on the growth that you've had and what you're doing with the Maxwell team. And thanks for being a great guest on the Lead Up podcast.
Thanks for having me.